Give a man a cup of tea, and he'll become tea drunk. Teach a man to make some tea.
Teach a man to make a tea, and he will have fish that he gets for selling that tea to other people. Leviticus.
This episode of The Modern Rogue brought to you by Squarespace. Head on over to squarespace.com/rogue, give it a free trial, and when you sign up, make sure to use promo code ROGUE, that's ROGUE, and get 10% off.
All right, Andrew Heaton, where are we? What are we up to?
We are at a tea house because I insisted that you show me a way to be more sophisticated than I already am, not involving stalking Kelsey Grammer.
What's funny is I thought you meant like keeping multiple copies of Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah, we got to get all the Kelsey Grammer impersonators in one room. But you said we are going to learn not just how to drink tea, but how to make tea.
Yeah, and we're going to go to the #1 spot in Austin, Texas, the West China Tea Company, and we're going to be here with my friend Sohan. I don't want to say that the two of us are about to steal all your good ideas.
For our business called Strip Teas.
Yes.
Which we have not registered anywhere.
What are the fundamentals everybody should know about making and presenting good tea?
Well, there's lots of different ways to make tea. British people make tea and Moroccan people make tea, and there's all kinds of ways to make tea. The way of making tea that we do here, the one that creates this really unique social context where people get really vulnerable and authentic and connect with each other, and that is a cool, gentlemanly skill that you could be like James Bond and share with people and they will be impressed, is doing Gong Fu Cha. And so, we talk about how this tea house is a great third space and everything, but not everyone has a tea house. Most places do not have tea houses in America. So most people can't just go down to their local tea house and hang out with people and drink tea. But when you make the tea yourself, you create that context. And so when people come in here visiting from out of town and they're like, well, I don't have anywhere that does this, but I want to learn how to do it, then we teach them how. And we have these tea sets that are travelable. This is what I'm going to kind of show you how it works with this, because it's a very basic set. It just has all of the most essential things that you need and doesn't have a lot of the extra like bells and whistles. But it looks like this. You've got this little case. And so you're gonna need, to make tea, you're gonna need a gaiwan. We talked about that before, what a gaiwan is. It's a lidded bowl. And so this has one of those in there. Bats, very male-coded there. And we've got our cups also with our waves. And then we've got the bowl of the gaiwan. And so let's pretend I'm at my friend's house or at the park or wherever that I can get some hot water to do stuff with. I can set this out, and I've got my vessel here, I've got my cups there, I've got the lid, and I've got all of my tea stuff.
So far, we only have 2 ingredients. We have the tea leaves, which I assume you would know where they come from and what each one tastes like, but also my grandparents lived in Orlando, Florida, and so I think the water matters a bit too.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure I get the Orlando reference, but I assume it's something bad about the water.
It's like you turn on the faucet and it's just sulfur stank coming at you.
Wow.
Yeah, don't use Orlando tap water or Austin tap water to make tea. We use nice water. You can get that however. You can go buy a jug of spring water, etc.
Is Austin tap water not good? Because I
No,
just
it's
drink
not
that.
good. Yeah, it's not good. Don't
Is it
drink
dangerous?
Don't drink it. Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. Don't
Okay.
drink it. That's my advice. But wherever you get water.
But you don't want to go full distilled water.
No, you don't want
because that's
distilled
too
water.
flat, right?
Exactly. You want
Yeah.
some minerals. You don't want all of the gnarly stuff that's in our water. So spring water, go buy a big bottle of Evian. Water from an actual spring is great if you have access to that. Some places do have decent tap water. So yeah, ingredients. If you want to make tea, here's what you need. You need water, good water. You need tea. Here's some tea here. This is the tea that comes with this little set. And then you need something to make the tea in. Well, you need something to boil the water. You need something to make the tea in. Most places have some way to boil water, fun fact, because people eat ramen. But you need a tea set to make tea the way that we do, this Gong Fu style. And so that's gonna be like this set that I just unpacked. You've got the place where you steep the tea. This is to serve the tea. It's called the Gong Dao Bei. It means justice cup, because it makes it just, otherwise it's uneven. And then you've got the cups for people to drink it, and then boom, that's it. You've got a tea party. So anywhere you are, you can create that whole environment like you do in a tea house.
I remember last time you explained the reason for the separation of each of the first 2 phases. Remind me of what that was.
So if I was to serve the tea directly into the cups, first of all, it would spill water everywhere and be messy because pouring from this into that, it's much bigger. But if I was to serve, let's say that here's y'all's cups, and I've got my cup here, and I was to pour from the gaiwan into the cups, 1, 2, 2, 3 cups of tea, I would get the weakest tea. You'd get the strongest tea. The last person getting served probably gets bitter tea. The first person gets water. Someone in the middle gets a nice cup of tea. But we don't want only the person in the middle to get a nice cup of tea. We want everyone to get a nice cup of tea. So we stop the steeping process by decanting it into this vessel, the Gong the justice cup. And the purpose of that is to homogenize it. So now that we're all getting the same concentration of tea as each other.
This is part of the more egalitarian nature of the Chinese presentation of tea.
Absolutely, yeah, very specifically. And so really you don't need a lot, and it looks very intimidating, but it's actually pretty simple. I'll go ahead and run through a little mini lesson on how we'd actually do this. I've just warmed everything up. I call that making ghost tea. And
so this was that wasn't just
for the sake of illustrating. No,
Yeah.
That's what I would do anyways. The first thing I do when I get up my tea set is I cleanse everything with boiling water, purify it, warm it up, rinse it. And so you can pour that in here. We'll pretend we're not at a tea house right now. We're in a park. Start by warming everything up. And then
that's just so it doesn't suck the heat out when you pour the actual tea?
Especially because Gong Fu Cha is all about precision and control, and I want the temperature of the water to be what I want it to be, not a few degrees lower. Just like when you're cooking, you don't put food into a cold pan, you usually heat the pan up and then you put the food in. The same is true with teaware. We'll go ahead and, what kind of vibe are you guys going for right now? Party vibe? You're going for like a kind of more focused vibe? You want to calm down?
I definitely have like 5 more hours of work to do today, so give me some spicy, peppy something.
We'll do a purple red tea. We did pu'er earlier. We'll do something that's got some more up energy. So this is a red tea. This is like your English breakfast or your lapsang souchong, and it's gonna have that kind of profile. But I'm choosing it right now, not just for the taste, but because you've got 5 more hours of work, you've got stuff to do, you want something that's gonna give you a little bit more of a stimulating feel. This is the little tube, it's a little sampler tube. It's got 10 different teas, but in this, there's red teas and white teas and green teas and hei chas, the fermented teas. And we've got this little diagram that tells you what they are. So they're color-coded. The base color and then the color of the bat and the ring that are on the label tell you what kind of tea it is. Because this one has a red base and a purple ring and a purple bat, it's what's called gamma ray. We call this tea gamma ray.
Because you better not get angry when you're on it.
Right.
You won't like yourself when you're angry.
Yeah. I didn't think about the Hulk references until someone came in and was like, I have to drink this tea because I'm a huge Hulk fan, and I'd forgotten about it till then. So I've got my little tea coin. Tea doesn't always come as these little coins, right? But it does sometimes, and we created this whole line of different ones. There's like 28 different ones that have this coded pattern on them that are all from the same farmer. And so we've got our little coin, we put it in here, and if you're being really a good host, you're gonna let people smell it first. So I'm gonna let you smell it. And you can smell it also when it's dry and cold, but it doesn't have a strong smell.
So you're able to get, kind of like a whiskey, you get a bit of the aromatics on there.
Yeah, why is it? Because like, I believe you put tea in here. You don't have to prove it to me. So like, why am I smelling this? Is it like wine where I can send it back? I've never done that before, but I'm like, no, this is Merlot's.
Hopefully you don't send it back. But here, I'll show you, because I'm about to rinse it, and then I'm gonna let you smell it again.
Okay.
And every time that we smell the tea and it changes, we're getting another expression of that tea. Like when you take a 3D picture, right? You take lots of different pictures from different angles, and then you get a 3D image. When we make the tea this way, we smell it many times. We smell it when it's dry, and then we smell it after it's been rinsed, and it changes. There's something there after it's rinsed that wasn't there when it was dry. And now we have 2 pictures of that tea. We taste it at different steepings, just like we did. We just steep it 5, 10 times, and every time we're getting a little bit different of a thing that we're drinking. And at the end, we have this much more nuanced experience of the thing. It's a lot stronger now, and it's a lot different.
It's like the opposite of Orlando. I like it.
Good. That's a high compliment from my understanding. But when we do it this way, we're constantly being re-engaged and drawn back into the experience, and that's kind of part of it. So you can give this to the monk here.
So in this case, we're all having a sample from the same level, but I assume as we go through the rest of the tea leaves that we have, we're about to see, this will probably taste more watery, then it'll get more intense, then it'll get too bitter.
If I'm doing my job, then it will start off soft and it will get stronger, and it will eventually peak at probably the 7th or 8th steeping, and then it will start to get softer. And you should get this bell curve, right? But if you look at a line on this bell curve, let's say you look at like 20%, steeping 2 out of 10, steeping 8 out of 10, and they have similar levels of solute concentration, they're not the same. Even if they're both at the same level of parts per million of tea juice in the liquid, because the profile has changed, it's evolved.
And is this one that you poured?
This is to pour out. This is the rinse. So just like we wash.
So this is just a rinse.
Just a rinse. You can give it to your tea pet. Exactly. If we didn't have this whole setup, I would just be pouring it into here. There you go. They love it. That's what they're there for. There's actually a Tea Pets movie. It's actually pretty good. You can tag it in the description, whatever. It's like Chinese Toy Story. It's great.
我叫阿唐，我是一个茶宠，店老板每天就跟我们教茶，每天都一样。
But, I'm rinsing the tea for the purpose of helping it wake up. You see this tea is a little coin, and so it takes a little while for it to unravel and unfurl. And as the leaves don't just go from 0 to all the way open right away. They do this, steeping 1, steeping 2, steeping 3, steeping 4. Even loose leaf tea, whole leaf tea will do this. And that evolution is part of the pleasure of drinking tea in this way, the way that the tea changes. So this is the first steeping that we're gonna drink. And then we'll keep on steeping this one, and it's gonna change. And what it does is it keeps on bringing us all back to the experience. Oh, there's this note that's coming out now that I didn't notice before.
Let's say that you were just doing loose leaf rather than one of those buttons. Would you still do a rinse?
Yes.
Okay, so you always do a rinse.
Sometimes you do a rinse. There's some teas that I don't rinse. Like that green tea that we drank earlier, I didn't rinse that one because it's a very fresh, very tender, early spring green tea. And so it's already pretty awake and it doesn't have to take a lot of coaxing to open up. So the more pressed or the more aged or the more roasted a tea is or anything like that, the more likely you are to want to rinse it to open it up.
Would it be an outrageous metaphor to think of like the heating and allowing to resume to room temperature and then the heating again as kind of almost a version of like when we learned about steaks, we learned about tenderizing the meats. It's this kind of like bringing out.
Is tea like steaks?
Is tea like steaks?
If you give me long enough, I will think of ways that tea is like steaks. Yeah.
We could serve T-bones at strip teas.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
There's actually levels there.
Just spilled here. What is the courteous thing for me to do?
Normally I have a cloth here. I flew it out for the sake of this little demo, but also whatever, it's fine. Tea doesn't get sticky. It's not like beer. It doesn't get sticky.
Nice.
So it's not the end of the world if you spill it on stuff. Yeah, it's really nice. But yeah, that's it. Like I said, it looks intimidating and it looks like this whole big process. Essentially, all that you are doing is you're pouring water on leaves and then you are serving it to people and drinking it. And people will come here and do this for 6 hours straight. And people will go out in the world, and I've literally made tea at picnic benches in the park before, and I'll have a half a dozen strangers who don't know each other and they don't know me, 10, 15 minutes in, sitting there drinking tea with me, sometimes for hours.
Are there like tea sommeliers? People who, because this has so many of the trappings that I really appreciate. Whiskey culture is like you're actually getting the aromatics from the earth of the other side of the planet. And when somebody knows the story of it, they're able to take you on a journey that's truly transformational.
There are, insofar as there are people who will distribute certifications. The thing is, there are not institutes that have established, accepted, universal authority in the world of tea the way there are for wine and I guess not whiskey, it turns out. But because this is Chinese culture, whereas whiskey and wine and beer and coffee and tobacco culture are all either colonized or they're from the West. So they're all coming from the same paradigm. They're all coming from the Western paradigm where it's about flavor wheels and it's about notes and all the sensual experience, the taste and the smell, the clarity, the legs, all these different things, and the craft. This is definitely about the craft as well, but the emphasis is less on the taste and the smell and more on, as we discussed, the feeling, the chi of the tea, that tea drunk feeling that we get. And so it's a little bit different because whereas a sommelier will talk about a wine or a whiskey, they'll never talk about a way it makes them feel. They're not evaluating that part. They're just evaluating the taste and the smell. But I posit that if whiskey and wine didn't make you feel the way they make you feel, nobody would care about them, right? There wouldn't be wine culture if wine didn't make you feel what it makes you feel. And you can have 2 wines or 2 whiskeys with the same ABV as each other and they make you feel different. And so with tea culture, the emphasis is on that. And when I've got this tube of coins, that I'm serving, I'm thinking about the vibe that I want to project into the room. I am mediating this whole interaction. And so it's like being a DJ and putting on a particular song for a particular vibe.
Yes.
When I'm doing it, and it's so subtle, people don't even know that it's happening. The whole vibe of the room will change, the volume of the conversation, the topic of the conversation, who's talking more, will change when you change teas, and it's so subtle.
When I took the whiskey sommelier program over at Wizard Academy, they had this curious moment where Daniel Whittington explained, like, it doesn't matter what your words are. For example, I couldn't tell what rye tasted like at all until somebody compared it to dillweed. And all of a sudden I'm like, I now know what rye smells and tastes like. Are there similar touchstones that you experience in tea that are internal to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as far as like, here's something I like to do with people, is I'll tell people, okay, smell the tea before you drink it. Slurp the tea when you sip it. And then after you swallow, exhale through your nose. And that's called retroolfaction. When you breathe out through your nose, retronasal olfaction, and it lets you smell things that you don't smell smelling the leaves. And it lets you smell things that you don't smell in the liquid itself.
And so in the bell curve, how far in are we at this point? I think we've had 3 rounds.
We have not hit the peak of the bell curve yet, because
Okay.
my water is not as hot as it would normally be, and I don't want to reboil it because it's super loud, but I'm adapting because that's my job as the tea server, is to adapt to the circumstances. So I'm doing longer steepings. Normally I'd be doing 5-10 second steepings, now I'm doing a little bit longer. But once this coin has dissolved and opened up into just loose leaves, it's gonna be a lot more receptive to the lower temperature water.
So I take it, if you were going to go to a park or something like that, you would much prefer to just have a thermos of hot water and do this in front of everybody, as opposed to like pre-make a thermos of tea.
Absolutely, yeah. Because you could do both. It'd be fun either way. But the nature of this thing, when you do this, it is so visually and gustatorily and tactilely engaging, olfactory engaging. Smelling the leaves as they progress from one steeping to the next is so much more textured than just having a cup of something. This takes it from being a beverage into being an activity. And I think that's the heart of it. This is a thing that you do, not a thing that you drink. And I think that's what makes it such a great thing to share with people.
Traditional beverages, you go into a gas station, you get whatever. Like that has to be manufactured by swimming pools at a time, and it all has to be uniform, and it all has to be expected to be kept at 42 degrees, and you just guzzle it down, and you're not experiencing the tea so much as this. There's a temporal aspect to it,
Right.
that like it's going to get more this way and then go this way.
And it depends who's serving it, and it depends what else is going on. And you could take this same tea coin home that we're drinking, this gamma ray coin, you could take another one home and make it, and it would not be what you're drinking now. It would be different, because you'll make it differently than I make it. I could make another one right when we're done doing this with the same equipment, and it would taste different. And there's a saying in Chinese, yi qi yi hui, one time, one meeting, that the lesson of tea, one of the big lessons of tea, is the absolute uniqueness and ephemerality of any given moment. You can't actually buy and hold on to an experience. You can just be present for the experience as it happens.
Is there a good place to go online to find out the story of different types of teas?
Yeah, I mean, our website, West China Tea, every tea that we have has a long, sometimes remarkably long description of where it's from, what it is. For example, this tea is by Li Shulin. He's a farmer I've known for 14 years now.
You know the farmer that you get this from?
I know all the
he knows
farmers.
all
That's
of
my
them.
deal. That is our deal here.
You didn't know what you're getting into.
Pick one
my
off
man.
the shelf. Pick one off the shelf, and I'll tell you the farmer. I'll tell you the person who made it. Yeah, but this is Li Shulin, the same guy that made the vanilla obscura we were drinking earlier, and he made all the coins in here. He's very unique in that he makes so many different kinds of tea. Most tea farmers won't. They'll stick to one thing, but he does a lot of different kinds of tea. I've known him for 14 years. I know his wife, I know his granddaughter. I know 2 of his 3 kids. I stay at his house when I go there. I don't stay in a hotel. We eat dinner together. He feeds me, every single meal. He will not let us go buy our own food at a restaurant. And he's been making tea his whole life, since he was a teenager. His parents were both in the tea industry, and he practices what's called shengtai nongye, ecological agriculture. And this is a naturally occurring mutant purple plant that has been selected. You go out in the tea field and there's green plants. Every now and again there's one purple one. If you just pick the purple leaves of those rare mutant purple plants, that's called ziya cha. When you process it into red tea, it's called ziya hong cha, and we call that gamma ray, and that's what we're drinking.
So we're drinking mutant tea.
We're drinking mutant tea. Or it is some kind of epigenetic switch that gets turned off and on. The mechanism is unclear, but sometimes tea plants are purple, just like sometimes people have red hair. It's rare.
Okay, so I do not have a refined palate. I learned to drink wine in Oklahoma, from whence I hail, drinking like sweet wine with dollar pizza. So my wine palate, that's the paradigm that I'm coming from. And I've scorched it with whiskey and cigars ever since then. So can I develop the capacity to understand the subtleties that you're referencing? Because I'm doubtful that I can appreciate the nuance you can.
If you set your mind to it, I have no doubt that you could. But drinking tea is not necessarily, or tea, Chinese culture is not necessarily about flexing that particular muscle and developing that particular muscle, the ability to pull notes, fragrances out. But I will say this, as you finish the last sip, finish that very last sip, and you two smell your empty cup, and then wave it around a little bit. Let it cool, let it dry, and then smell it again, and do that a couple times. And you get what's called the lungxiu, the cold fragrance. And do it again, now that it's cooled down a little bit, and it will change. You get about 30 seconds of that.
It is in motion.
Yeah, it evolves, yeah. So all these little subtle things, whether you can smell that or not, doesn't actually detract from your ability to appreciate tea. Even if your nose cannot smell smells, even if your tongue cannot taste tastes, you can be here, you can drink it, you can feel it in your body and still feel that it's good and enjoy it. And people do. There's people who come here a lot who don't actually have a sense of smell. They're smell blind.
Really? Because
Absolutely.
I'm about there. I've always had allergies growing up, so I've just never developed. I think my brain literally didn't develop the right neurons for smelling, so I can kind of smell stuff, but not very well.
And that goes back to what we were saying earlier, is that what makes a tea valuable or good versus one that's not good is more about how it feels than how it tastes and smells. So I would say that what is the muscle that you flex to be better at tea? Well, one is just being present with the experience, because that's when you get those subtleties, breathing out through your nose, smelling the cup, just being present for them, whether you can articulate them or not, whether you can even tell in your own mind that you're experiencing anything or not, just having that attention, that level of attention and presence. The other is the skill of serving tea. That's how you be good at tea, in the way that you be good at wine by being able to tell notes, or be good at whiskey by being like, this is a Scotch, this is an Irish whiskey, etc. The way that you get good at tea and develop skill in it and progress in that practice is by mastering the physical and technical skills, and there's more to it than that, of pouring tea, the art of Gong Fu Chao, which is what I'm doing here, and which, if you guys want to learn how to do it, then I can show you how to do it.
I'm probably going to get all the science wrong, but one of the beautiful things about this ritual is that it forces a separation of time. So during that separation of time, we may have different discussions. We may be in the middle of a heated argument or whatever, but I think it's the amygdala, the lizard part of the brain, that the olfactory senses go straight to. So it's like you ever smell something and all of a sudden you're transported back to being 8 years old.
Orlando.
Brutal.
Exactly, right? Being at your grandma's house or whatever. We're in if I'm understanding this correctly, we're inducing those anchors over the course of multiple hours in our conversation and interactions with each other. And because it changes over time, we'll later be able to have one of those like, oh, I remember being angry at Heaton at this moment. I don't know why.
The smell memory, you're right, it goes straight up into your brain, and it's getting processed. It's one of the oldest senses is smell, and it's doing a lot less sophisticated processing than something like vision or sound. And the thing about smell memory is that you can access memories by smelling something that reminds you of them that you have no other way of accessing. You can't just conjure those memories because it's very difficult to conjure a smell in your mind. You can close your eyes and imagine a scene. You can hear a song in your head, but it's very hard to imagine a smell and really smell it in your mind's nose.
Whoa, I'm tripping right now. Like, cause I'm thinking of like mint, and my brain's going like, yeah, we know mint, and I'm like, right, but can you give it to me? And my brain's like, sorry, I can't do that. Just look at the file.
There's some particular brand of Sterno that the moment I smell it, I'm instantly teleported back to 7th grade at West Memorial Junior High.
Yeah,
and it's involuntary.
Freon reminds me of my freshman year of college because I had a leaky air conditioner or something. I don't know. So like when I smell Freon, I'm like, whew, Katie.
And it takes you back to that moment because, and one of the reasons is that the more that we access a memory, the less emotional impact it has. And so when you've got a memory that is locked away, inaccessible to your frontal lobe, but only accessible by being triggered with a smell, when you smell that thing, that you access that memory you may not have accessed for a long time, it rushes back with all of the emotional impact of the original event. This is why they have trauma. People re-experience their trauma to get over trauma, is to relive it because it lessens that. Every time they revisit it, it reduces the emotional impact. And so that smell memory is powerful.
On top of that, what I've heard is like every time you recall a memory, you're not recalling the actual memory, you're recalling the last time you recalled the
exactly.
memory.
Reconstructing it. Yeah.
So you can Rashomon yourself.
Where can we buy kits like these? I'm just gonna throw tea everywhere.
Yes.
I'm just a real bad person.
So this is like our basic, we want people to be able to make tea. We want to equip you with this skill so you can go out in the world and share this with your friends. This tea set, which is what I've been using this whole time and have been entertaining the three of us, plus this tube of 10 different random coins, little blind box, and the class, this does not represent the class, but there's a class online. You can watch it. It will tell you what all these teas are, how to make them, and how to use this set. And we call that our bat pattern starter kit on the website. So this by itself is the bat pattern travel set. It's got bats on it. That's our logo. It has got bats. Boom, right there. That's a bat. Bats are good luck in Chinese culture. So our standard one that we just want everyone to have has got bats all over it. And then this tube is called the Tea Coin Mystery Tube. On the website, you can also buy this separately, but together with the class, there are little starter pack.
We could go where to get it?
WestChinaTea.com.
Yeah.
WestChinaTea.com, and we try to always have these in stock, so this is everything that you need, besides hot water. You need access to
Can I order hot water from you?
Not yet.
No.
We're working on it.
Only from Orlando, strangely enough.
All right, nice.
Yeah, they've got it. I don't know why.
What do we say? Lobo Von Dios?
Lobo Chido.
Oh, there we go. Lobo Chido.
All right, yes, you definitely should buy the travel tea kit from Sohan. I'm sure it's perfect, I'm sure it's great, but I'm also sure I can compete with him. With the Brian Brushwood Texas style travel tea set. You'll notice it comes in this fine 1-gallon container. And yes, we have our own ritual. You carefully untwist the top. Sohan, he's not the only one that can do bats. This Texas-style Brian Brushwood branded travel tea set, it's gonna be the next big thing. I need to register a URL. I'm gonna need some kind of scalable solution with a reliable hosting service, something that can take my message from this little kitchen to the whole internet overnight. It's gotta look beautiful as this fine tea set. What if it had award-winning designs? Perfect for any blog portfolio or merchandise store. Yeah, it's gotta have a commerce section. It can have an email list. If only such a solution existed at squarespace.com/rogue. That's right, spell it right, R-O-G-U-E. Give it a free trial, try it on for yourself, and when you fall in love, because you will, make sure to use promo code ROGUE at checkout. That's R-O-G-U-E. You'll get 10% off. You'll be keeping us in business, and you'll be an early investor in the Brian Brushwood travel tea set. I'm gonna go sit out in the 110-degree heat and just have a fine bit of this little bit of Texas tea. Texas tea is oil. Why would I have oil?
This episode is supported in part by people like you who watched to the end by pledging at patreon.com/modernrogue, where we just recently published our multicam unedited view of the previous tea video with Sohan.
You ever learn how to make tea?
Yeah. I used a hammer and a sieve, and I had some kind of pot that I boiled in a campfire.
Wait,
It was very manly tea. It did not taste good.
I'm sorry, how is manly tea different from regular tea?
You hit the packets harder with a hammer than you normally would.
Okay,
To let them know that you gotta let them know you're boss.
The packets?
You know? Yeah.
You buy
the
packets.
tea packets.
Okay,
You know?
and then
like
you hit them with a
ketchup
hammer.
or you get tea.
Okay.
You hit them with a hammer.
Yeah.
You put them in like some kind of tub with coals underneath it.
And are
you
these
cook it. This is known. This is known. You boil it, then you give people the boiling tea, and they go, "Thank you. We're very sophisticated now."
Who taught this to you?
My grandfather did, right out of prison.